What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the channel, and like you, I'm absolutely pumped up for the start of the regular season, but I am looking at this Mets rotation right now, and boys, it filled with uncertainties, mainly thanks to injuries of recent, and unfortunately, this is our luck as Mets fans, so it does beg the question, are the Mets going to combat this? If so, will they do it strictly internally, based on their depth options in-house, or will they seek things externally? And as we all know by now over the past week, the Mets have shown that they are willing to, in fact, acquire a starting pitcher or two to help the depth of this rotation. So the question is, who exactly is that going to be, and what is the likelihood of a trade happening? That is what we'll be deep diving in today's video. So as always, folks, make sure you stay all the way till the end of the vid while I lead to know my thoughts on the New York Mets and what they could potentially add to this rotation, depth overall on the pitching front. And of course, folks, if you find yourself enjoying this kind of Mets content and you want to see more great Mets content like this, don't hesitate from smashing that like and subscribe button, sharing this video with your friends, on the notification bell, all those great things. Thank you all so much for the continued support, folks. Now let's jump right into today's video. But before I deep dive today's video, folks, I have to let you all know that I have partnered with my good friends at Thrive Fantasy, the best daily fantasy sports contest you can find out there. And us together are coming up with the great idea that, yeah, we're going to give you guys a Max Scherzer jersey for free. And all you guys have to do to enter this giveaway, guys, it's so simple. Go down below by clicking the link for Thrive Fantasy to sign up. Use my promo code LFGM. You got to love the code, right? And you are automatically going to be set. You got to make sure you deposit at least $10. And for people who deposit $10 for their first time, they will get matched upwards of $100. So you make your money back and then some. And you're also getting two $20 entries for free for contests. And if you deposit $100, you guys are going to get four $20 entries for free for contests. And then you guys have to go in and enter into at least one of the MLB opening day contests that they have available, as you guys see here. I love the system that they do. They have the big rewards of $25,000 being spent for this one. For instance, you have to pick 10 out of 19 to 20 players just on the over-unders, but it's based on points. So to just get, say, the over on hits, the over on strikeouts, it's so easy. And whoever becomes the highest ranking, that use my promo code LFGM when signing up, even if you guys did not win the contest, as long as you were the highest rank out of everyone that signed up here, you do in fact win that Scherzer jersey giveaway. So it is that easy. Again, go to thrivefantasy.com using the link down below, using LFGM, the promo code, of course, and then sign in, do the deposit, join a contest for MLB opening day, and I will announce the winner 24 to 48 hours after those contests have finished here on the YouTube channel's community tab. So again, Thrive Fantasy, promo code LFGM, and thanks so much to Thrive Fantasy for sponsoring today's video. All right, folks, so let's start things off by briefly touching on how we got here, because unless you've been living under a rock, yes, the Mets, who were deemed to have arguably the best rotation in baseball to start this season, now find themselves with pitching woes before we have even begun the year, thanks to Jacob deGrom, unfortunately, and I cannot emphasize that enough, being out for a minimum of 2 months. Best scenario is that the Mets get him back right in the beginning of June. Say he doesn't throw a pitch for the next month, which is the current case. Then his imaging comes back after that, perfectly healed and healthy with his shoulder. Then he gets ramped up, which again takes upwards of a month. So best case scenario is we see the best pitcher back in baseball starting around June, hoping that there's no setbacks or anything like that. Max Scherzer has been dealing with a little bit of a tweaked hammy. He should be able to pitch through it, and he is expected to start game 2 for the Mets in their opening series in DC, which I'll be in attendance for that game. I'm very excited for it, but still, at age 37 right now, the Mets are not going to rush too much when it comes to someone like him and any type of injury. So again, this is something that if it is nagging throughout the year, we may see some situations where Scherzer, unfortunately, is not getting as many innings or as much time that we initially expected in the first half, at least. And then, yes, the most recent guy being in Taijuan Walker. We all know the story with Walker. He had surgery back in the middle of June just for a small procedure on his knee. So heading into camp, he was a little bit behind, and really the starts that he had in spring would dictate if he would be for certain ready to go or not in the Mets opening day rotation. He is currently set to pitch this upcoming Monday in Philly, but he today, in his final spring start in the Mets' final spring game of the year, only got through 1 inning. He gave up 6 runs in total, a couple home runs. He was sitting way below on the velo for his fastball and his overall pitches, and it wasn't just because the gun was cold at the time. Even when looking at it, he was sitting between 88 and 90 to 91 tops, which again is not what you expect from Taijuan. So he said openly after the game today that for the past week, he has been dealing with some soreness with his knee, of course, from the injury. The Mets are fully aware of this, but this is new news to us fans. So of course we're thinking the sky is falling right away and all these things, but no. But what it does tell you is the Mets go from having Jacob deGrom to be opening day pitcher Scherzer this second game, and then Chris Bassett number 3, and so on and so forth, to the Mets potentially having a bullpen game for opening day, or it's going to be one of Tyler McGill, David Pearson, or yes, that being in someone like the other depth options that they currently have in Trevor Williams. Either way, it's not ideal for how the Mets want to start the season, and while that really isn't a big deal, what is certain is the Mets having this pursuit of going after at least another decent to quality starter in this rotation. Given the Jacob deGrom news, not knowing for certain when he'll be back yet, again, anything can happen on his front right now. Scherzer, God forbid, if he ever goes down, you lose your ace, and then you were really grasping at straws in this rotation with uncertainties. Again, Taijuan Walker, how healthy is he going to be this year? How much are you going to get out of him, especially in the first half? Cookie Carrasco, how effective is Cookie going to be? Because he has to prove himself, even though I have been pretty satisfied from what we saw through his 2 starts there in spring thus far when it comes to production from him and being high on that velo. And then you have your other options. So right now the Mets have been doing their due diligence. We saw them make a trade almost happen with the Padres that we talked extensively on in a previous live stream. Make sure to check it out if you haven't already, folks, because you're going to see some repetition here. But in all, the Mets were trying to get Chris Paddock, a young controllable starter who broke out in 2019 with the stupid beef with Pete Alonso that we all know. With Paddock, who has a partially torn UCL from last season, it doesn't seem like it's a ticking time bomb, because if it was, the Mets wouldn't have been reportedly in negotiations for multiple days with the Padres to get that deal done. They ended up saying no. Dom Smith would have went the other way. The Mets would have got Chris Paddock, Emilio Pagan, reliever, and Eric Hosmer. Hosmer would have been flipped to either the Cubs or a different team that would want his services, because the Mets weren't interested in actually keeping him and even eating that contract of, say, $6.25 million for 4 years in a row. Even that much is something that the Mets simply didn't want to deal with Hosmer, given what he would currently bring the Mets, which isn't really too much better than what Dom Smith can offer you, even Robinson Cano potentially, and JD Davis off the bench as, again, primarily DH options. So all in all, the Mets are still looking to add pitching, because when it was initially reported, it was stated that the Mets have been in talks with multiple teams. And as of now, there's been further reports to indicate that the Mets have been showing dialogue and with multiple teams. Exactly who those teams are, we may never know. But what we do know right now is that the Mets are definitely looking to add pitching, and this really isn't a desperation tactic. Rather, this is something that they have had intentions of for at least at minimum the past week reportedly, and it probably goes well beyond that. Prior to the Jacob deGrom news and prior to the Taijuan Walker, if you want to call it setback or however you want to go about it, it definitely wasn't a positive today in his spring game. But when looking at what the Mets are trying to do right now and what options are out there, the Padres do feel like a very appealing club to still get a deal done with potentially, because they acquired Sean Manaea from the Oakland A's, and it has been reported that the Mets would not be looking to acquire Manaea from the Padres and say a trade for a trade again, because the Mets are not trying to add a starter that's a rental. They already did that with Chris Bassett from Oakland, respectively. They're trying to land a starter. They're trying to land a guy that has yet to hit his peak, that they can really build into something great. That's what they had intentions with Paddock, reportedly, to really get his changeup to become an elite pitch. And as long as his partially torn UCL wouldn't be a problem, he can pitch through it. Jake had potentially a partially torn UCL last season. He denounced what Sandy said, but either way, pitchers can pitch through that. You just have that concern if they can be ticking tie bonds because of it. Masahiro Tanaka is a great example. Pitches his entire career with the Yankees for the most part with a partially torn UCL, and it's still going strong overseas, to name one person out of many that have had the injury at this point. But the Mets, there's plenty of guys that make sense for the Padres, but it's still led by Chris Paddock, young, controllable, and has high upside to potentially be right now a number 4, number 5 for the Mets, but maybe be a number 3 at his peak in his career or even higher. Then you have others that in their organization, they have plenty of depth. But then you also have the main guy who's been out there, the biggest fish, reportedly, that is Frankie Montas of the Oakland A's. And yes, Montas will cost you a haul, so by no means do I think it's a guarantee the Mets can and or will land someone like him. But Montas has been in discussions with plenty of teams, at least the A's have for that matter. The Twins have showed interest. I know the White Sox have been going after pitching, so has the Yankees. And Montas has multiple years left of control in his contract still, and really is a guy that, again, if the Mets are trying to land a bona fide starter that can come in the middle of the rotation right away, that is Montas, who has an unbelievably high ceiling. We've talked about him so much on the channel already. So the Mets could land someone like that. That would truly be tremendous. But how much would you have to give up for him? Well, Dom Smith, I'd imagine, would go the other way. They lost Matt Olson. Dom Smith would come in as a young, controllable first baseman, get playing time, at-bats every single day, would benefit him and would benefit an A's team in their retool because they never fully go all in because they can't spend, unfortunately. So Oakland does make a lot of sense based on being a Matt Olson replacement for Dom and whatever else the Mets may have to part with if it's not too overbearing and it isn't too much of a desperation tactic on the Mets' part where the A's may take full advantage of whatever they're trying to do there in a potential deal should he be dealt. There are other teams, of course, the Cincinnati Reds, Luis Castillo, but he's not going anywhere more than likely. Tyler Mahle, who the Mets showed interest in prior to landing Chris Bassett, would be a really strong fit as well, but who knows exactly if the Reds are still willing, because as of recent reports, the Reds are not trading either of those guys, so I'm not going to get my hopes up. Right now, there are plenty of pitchers out there via trade that would be a great fit for the Mets, but if you're looking at two right now that definitely feel like the strongest possibilities, even though Montas still is going to cost you a lot, I'm looking at the Oakland A's and the San Diego Padres. Given their current status, the Padres are trying to make more moves. They've been rumbled to be going after Jose Ramirez as well from the Guardians, among others. They want to part with that Hosmer and or Will Myers contract. Can the Mets be a facilitator again, maybe in a separate deal? It's possible. And the Oakland A's, they just check off the box. If they're trying to get Dom, potentially, I don't know, with JD Davis and other assets, and in return, the Mets are able to bring in one of the most young and promising pitchers in the game in Frankie Montas. We'll soon find out. Either way, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if the Mets make a deal or the next couple days leading into the regular season, or after seeing a little bit of what they are doing internally right now, and maybe it isn't working in their favor, because again, when you look at the rotation, David Pearson, Trevor Williams, these are guys that can eat you innings, but can they eat you quality innings, especially with having Jacob deGrom down for a minimum of 2 months? That's going to be a big question. I expect the Mets to ride it out a little bit here, but again, they've been having constant dialogue with teams for a reason, so no one should be surprised if a trade does in fact transpire sooner rather than later. But Mets fans, let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about the Mets and their current rotation status? Would you like them to make a trade? And if so, who do you think is best fit for the Mets in their rotation right now, outside of a depth option, maybe a number 2, number 3, whatever you think is best for the organization that I haven't talked about already, let me know in the comments down below. And again, folks, if you found yourself enjoying this kind of Mets content and you want to see more great Mets content like this, don't hesitate from smashing that like and subscribe button, sharing this video with your friends, button the notification bell, all those great things. Thank you all so much for the continued support, folks. It really does mean the world to me, and I'll talk to you later. Let's go Mets, baby.